Good evening. Thank you for joining us on the London Republicans, the party that's looking out for you. Tonight's show is hosted by me, Bill Vogel, chairman of the New London Republican Town Committee. And before we get started, I just wanted to say I hope you're enjoying the weather. We only got 30 days till spring, so maybe it'll do a magic flip by then. But unfortunately, I guess we're in for more snow, I guess, tonight, and some more coming up. And we have really cold weather coming in, so it's still discouraging, and I guess we're just going to have to live with it until we get through it. So unless you got a ticket to Florida, and I'm not even sure Florida was really cold the other day too. So I'm not sure that any place in the East Coast would be good. Maybe if you went down to Puerto Rico or someplace like that, you might make out. But anyway, it's been a tough winter, and and we can all just hope that we make it until we see the azaleas coming up, or the crocuses. Crocus is what I'm looking for. Looking for the crocuses and the daffodils and those kind of things. So hopefully they're not too far away. But anyhow, before we jump into the agenda, I just want to say that it just keeps, it's hard to be positive when we have so many negative things going on in the world and things around us. When you look at the world as a whole, it looks like a friggin' disaster. I mean, you got 21 Christian Egyptians, Coptic Christians, beheaded in Libya. And the president came out and said Egyptian citizens, didn't even mention they were Christians, nor did he mention that it was an Islamic terrorist that killed them. You had the Jordanian pilot that was part of our coalition that was burned to death last week. And then we've had 3 Americans beheaded and a couple British people. And it's just, I mean, these guys and they're taking over more and more stuff. The president sits there and says, well, they're not an existential threat. Well, guess what? Hitler wasn't an existential threat either in 1933, but he sure was by 1940. And these guys, one of the things I want to tell you, and it seems like I sort of hate to bring it up because it's kind of dire, but, there are nuclear weapons out there. And part of the Muslim community that has nuclear weapons is Pakistan, for one. Iran's not far behind. And who's to say where the rest of them stand? And who's to say oil money can't buy nuclear weapons from Pakistan? But what I'm really trying to say is that these ISIL people, as they form their caliphate, and as our president sits there and watches it all happens for the next 2 years, we might be facing a group that has nuclear weapons. And if they are terrorists, as they are, they feel like they have really nothing to lose. And they wouldn't even blink at setting off a nuclear weapon someplace in the United States or Europe or anywhere. So even though you sit there and say, well, it's not really an existential threat, well, it really is. But if you throw the nuclear weapons idea on top of it, it becomes a very real existential threat. And it's not something that you can kid around with. You can't say, well, that won't happen. Come on, he's being alarmist. No, it's not. That's real. Pakistan, North Korea have nuclear weapons, and they're totally out of control. Hold on a second, we'll take a call. Hello, caller, you're on New London Republicans. Hello, caller. I guess we don't have a call. Hello? Okay. But anyway, we're talking about nuclear weapons, and we're talking about existential threats, and we're talking about what's happening all the way around the world, and we're talking about a president that's like Neville Chamberlain in Britain that came back from Munich in 1938 saying that he agreed with Hitler that they're going to have peace in our times, when it wasn't even a couple months later, Hitler invaded this place, that place, the other place, and pretty soon Britain was pulled into the Second World War when they invaded Poland. So these things, you can sit there and say, well, when Hitler first started out, everybody thought, well, this guy's not going to make it. This is just, he's just, pounding the nationalistic drum. Germany's still a basket case. They haven't even recovered from the recession yet. And look what happened. Now, is Germany the same as the ISIS caliphate? No. Germany was a lot more of a real threat because they had a lot more capabilities than these guys do, it would seem. But when you throw nuclear weapons into the picture, when you throw weapons of mass destruction like, anthrax or diseases and things like that, there's not much that these guys can't do. So they're an existential threat even without weapons of mass destruction. When you throw weapons of mass destruction in there, you better watch your behind because you could have a real problem on your hands. And it's time that the United States and Europe and all the free-loving countries of the world got together, brought the tanks in, brought the troops on the ground, and then went and got these guys. We need to go. And then there's people that out there that say, and this really gets me, there's people out there that say, we're tired, we're a war-weary country, we've gone through Afghanistan and Iraq, and we're just war-weary. Do you know anybody that was put out by any of those wars? Almost nobody was. Yes, the people in the military certainly carried the load for us all. But the people that weren't in the military did squat. I mean, and nothing wrong with that, but you certainly weren't impacted. You didn't lose any sleep overnight because we were at war in Afghanistan. Matter of fact, we're still at war in Afghanistan, and the president doesn't even talk about it. When's the last time he made a speech about what our military was doing in Afghanistan or Iraq as it stands now, or how we're doing against ISIS, other than to say, well, it's a police action, it's like the mayor of a large city, they're the JV team. I mean, this is just gone crazy. Americans aren't war weary. Most Americans haven't been impacted by any war since World War II. Even Korea was hardly impacted anybody. So let's not talk about being war weary. The people that are war weary are people that are getting their heads cut off. And guess what? We're not that far behind. If somebody's willing to cut your head off, they're not going to worry about whether they throw anthrax at you, or they put diseases in the country, or if they get a hold of a nuclear weapon or a dirty bomb or any of those kind of things. So the president really has got to get off his butt. Almost everybody, every general that you see on TV, every politician just about that you see on TV, all feel like we need to do more. We need a strategy. We need to do something. And we'll get into some more of that towards the end of the show if we get time. But I just wanted to get that out in front because, boy, I mean, I spent a lot of years on the submarines, sailing around the world. And at that time, it was the Cold War. And, we were worried, as we should have been, about Russian nuclear weapons, which still exists today. But now you're looking at a different situation where it's not concentrated in one country that has a lot to lose. So the Russians aren't going to do something because they have a lot to lose unless they're really threatened, perhaps. But these guys, these Islamists, they don't have anything to lose. Matter of fact, they think if they get killed, they're going to go to heaven and get 70 virgins or something. So God help us. But anyway, that's enough of that for the moment. You'll probably get a little bit more of it later. But anyhow, so let's just jump into the agenda. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the chief of police issue. I don't know how we could have bungled that more than we have. I'd like to have somebody call in and say, no, we've done a good job of that. Bill, that you're just being looking at the bad side of things with the Chief Ackley situation. It really isn't as bad as it looks. I'll tell you that I don't think there's anybody in the state of Connecticut or in this country that would look at that situation and say anything but you guys mismanaged it, you're fools, you're idiots, what in the heck are you doing? You got somebody that's getting $110,000 a year who hasn't worked since July 31st, if then, maybe even, that was officially the last day. And so there she is drawing a salary all these months upon months upon months, and now even taking courses with the city paying for them, and we haven't done anything about it. So now, at this late date, I mean, the whole thing seems so mismanaged. First of all, the mayor came out And instead of just firing her for cause, because the police department had a huge morale problem, had lost 33% of its force, everything was going to hell in a handbasket, that was more than enough reason to say, okay, I'm firing this chief of police. And he would have had a lot of ground to stand on. But instead what he did, and I'm not sure why he did it, I'm trying to figure this out because it seems obvious. You can fire a police chief for cause. Well, what is cause? When you have a department that's not functioning, you have cause. And anybody would realize that. But instead he came up with a lot of little trivial things like she didn't have enough police station at Ocean Beach, and she didn't do some overtime or did overtime, and she did or didn't do something with the unions. It's just stuff that's really ridiculous. Then he comes in, wants $90,000 to have a 90-year-old guy who had a great reputation, but the word is had, because he's poor guy, 90 years old, you don't expect him to do too much. And the city council voted that down. He wanted to have that guy investigate Chief Ackley, these phony, I don't know if they're phony, but these trivial things that he was bringing up against her. And then he said, okay, well, he'll have somebody in the city personnel office do it. So then we wait months and months for this person to do it. Now, whether or not she did it or not, we don't know, because he never released the investigation. It's my conjecture, and it is a conjecture, that perhaps the investigation she did came out and wasn't nearly tainted enough for him to justify firing the chief. Because I don't think he's at really, the grounds that he picked are kind of weak. He had he had tremendous grounds saying that the police department was on its butt, which it was, and is a little better now, but it definitely was on its butt then, and he had every justification to fire her at that point. Now he's using this trivial stuff, and I predict that he's going to lose again. He's going to bring another lawyer in for $20,000 this late date. Hopefully they'll push it so that it's done sooner rather than later, and this guy's going to come up and he's going to find dang little to say that she should be fired based on the stuff that he came out against her. Now remember, he didn't really put her on leave of absence, paid leave of absence, until she filed a lawsuit against him that said that he was interfering with her doing her job, which he probably was. So, I mean, it just, this thing really just smells. It's just really bad. And, you got to wonder if, can people really be this dumb, or is there some other reason behind it? When I used to work in the Pentagon, I saw some dumb things come up, and I used to say, well, gee, there must be some political thing behind this, because that nobody's telling anybody about, because nobody would do something this dumb. But 9 times out of 10, it really was that dumb. But there are, 1 in 10, it was some mischief behind it, where somebody was, there were other reasons why they were doing things. And the case of the Ackley situation, you got to remember the mayor and Ackley were the best of buddies. Ackley got the mayor elected because she shot down, she killed Basetto, who would have probably undoubtedly been elected, because he would have won the primary, and he probably would have been elected because he's a Democrat. And I'm sure Rob Pirro would have, if we didn't have so many people running, Rob Pirro would have done really well too. It's hard to say how a Basetto-Pirro situation would have come off, but by having killed Basetto, he was able to garner the Democratic nomination at the primary and win the general election. But that was all because Ackley did everything she could to discredit Mike Basetto. And as it turns out, it looks like it was done wrongly, because when it was investigated, the people that investigated said it was ridiculous, she had no case. So you got things going on here that you got to wonder if everybody's playing with a straight deck, or do we have other things going on? It's so incompetent the way that Ackley's been handled. You can almost say, you could make the case that, well, nobody would do something that stupid. It must be on purpose. Maybe this is a deal to give her, $100,000 for doing nothing. But my guess really is what's going on is Ackley's holding out for a big fat settlement, and Finenzio, I don't know why he didn't clear the slate on this thing earlier. You would have thought he would have wanted to get this out of the way as soon as he could, because it's really a sore thumb. I mean, if all you got to do is bring this whole situation up, and it looks like he's incompetent. So I don't know. It's really discouraging. Marty Olson voted against the $20,000 for the next lawyer. And Marty was very vocal in saying how ridiculous and how incompetent and how mismanaged this situation has been, which indeed it has been. Hello, caller. You're on New London Republicans. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
This is?
Say again, please.
You know what this is?
No, I don't.
This is Ray.
Hey, Ray. How are you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Hey, good. Well, thank you for calling.
How you like the snow?
I'm getting tired of it, I'll tell you. I even did some more shoveling today, and I'm really tired of the snow.
No guests today, huh?
No, not tonight.
Oh. You'll be on next week, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Okay, hey, thanks, Ray.
Bye.
You take it easy. Okay. But anyway, on the Marty Olson really had a lot to say, you know, not necessarily so long, but very vociferously about how badly that situation's been handled. And the only thing I could say is that I wish the other counselors had got on the same bandwagon. At this point, I don't know what the right answer is. The right answer was back when the police department was falling apart, the mayor should have fired her right then and there for cause. Now he's going to have a big problem. I suspect that what's going to come out of this investigation for $20,000 is just like the same investigation that the personnel people did in the city. It's going to come pretty much to nothing because the accusations are kind of weak. And then what they'll end up doing is, having spent the $20,000, they'll end up settling with Ackley for some amount of money. I hope that it's not a big amount. But, you know, there she is pulling a salary. She's got a fat retirement. She's got all kinds of other money coming in from what they called, not overtime, but hours worked beyond 8, which any supervisor knows you do that. You don't get paid for it, but not here. And so she's got all kinds of money sitting out there. And if she had if she was really a good person, she would just go ahead and resign, retire. And get the hell out of the way and not try to screw over the people of New London. But I suspect what will happen is between she and Finenzio, the people of New London, the taxpayers of New London will definitely, get the wrong end of the stick. We'll just have to see. Hopefully I'm wrong about that and things will work out better than I expect. I don't know if, like I said, on the $20,000, I'm of a mind that this thing just has to get done. And the mayor's missed the boat of just flat firing her. So I'm not sure. I guess what I would get a lawyer and I'd say, go see if you can settle with Ackley for something, a decent, something that's not going to kill New London. Hello, caller. You're New London Republicans.
Hey, good evening, Bill. This is Dennis from New London.
Hi, Dennis.
I watched the council meeting last night, and I give praise to Marty. He stood his ground.
Yes, he
did.
did.
A lot of the questions, which I was very surprised that Passero and Tranquita didn't join in on this. I didn't expect much different from the rest. But everybody's slamming the chief. Now let's look at this a little bit here.
Yeah.
If the mayor really wanted to have an investigation and get rid of her, he would have done it right from the beginning. He wouldn't have came to the council with a $93,000 proposal for some gentleman that's 90-something years old. Not saying there's anything wrong with 90 years old. The guy could be sharper than me by tenfold. But the thing is, he had to know that wasn't going to fly. So then he puts this woman that works within the administration somehow and says that, well, she's hired by the payroll department or whoever.
She's
is not hired by him, so she'll be a good fix. That didn't work out. I think he knows his stuff isn't working out, and he's doing this intentionally, and I think he's doing it because he has nothing on the chief. That's my opinion. You know,
I think you're right. I think he had everything if he just had
He didn't
fired
have
her
anything. I don't see
for
people
the
keep
morale.
saying that. What
But
did he
now he
have?
doesn't have anything.
What did he have on the chief from day one?
Yeah,
He made an agreement with her, and like always, he went ahead and made a sealed deal without taking the consul's input on it, and the consul rejected it, and that started this whole ball rolling. And that was some time back. And this is the trait this man has. He's always hiring people, paying them up front, they're being paid, and then he goes to the consul for permission to hire them. By then, the people already changed where they live, they're making money, now they can turn around and sue the city. So he puts the consul and the city in a position every time.
Yeah.
Now, you know, this whole thing with the chief, this all started this time around because she went, as you know, to a judge or whatever to stop him from interfering with her everyday job as a chief of police in New London, which he should not be involved in her everyday aspect of her job.
You're right.
He's just there. I mean, he hires and fires her to a point, but he's not there to run the damn police department. That is not his job. He hires people for that. And now everybody's getting on her case about, oh, she's suspended with pay, she's got this, Let me ask you something, Bill. If you were working for the city and they suspended you for some reason with pay, would you turn around and say, oh, I don't want the money? You still got to make a living.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I would, after a while, you know, less than 6 months, I probably would just retire, like, you know, rather than keep. I mean, at some point, it becomes dishonorable.
How many people would really do that? How many people you know in New London that would, for the good of the city, would retire?
Yeah.
I don't think a lot. And some of these people that he kicked out of the police department, they didn't want to retire.
You're right.
The whole reason this woman is collecting this kind of money and taking all the benefits that are awarded to her that every other person in this city would have under the same circumstances, including the mayor, is on the mayor's shoulders. Because he did this as soon as she came after him, he came on top of her.
Yep, that's what happened.
So who are we blaming here?
Yep. Well, I
You
think
know how
with the
these
mayor, like I
Democrats
said,
are, man. Whenever you have a crisis, it works to their benefit. So everybody's all hung up on this whole chief thing and all this money and all this other kind of stuff, and nobody's paying attention to what the hell the mayor's doing.
You're right about that. I mean, the mayor's totally blown this one. I mean, like I said earlier, I think he had a case for firing her for cause when the police department was crumbling, half of which was his fault, but she wasn't helping too much either. And
well, what can you think about this for a minute? I know I'm trumpeting for the chief, but I'm trying to be fair here.
Yeah.
You say when the police department was crumbling. Who was causing that police department to crumble? Who started that crumbling? It was the mayor getting involved in the police department's business.
Yeah, well, he definitely had a hand to play. There's no doubt about it. Plus, he came up with all the layoffs and everything. So, I mean, you know, so she was dealing with a bad situation to start with. But boy, I don't think she played her cards very well back then.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how much she could have played her cards as much as she wanted to. It's kind of hard to play your cards when the person that is over your head is coming down on you and making life a living hell for you. How do you play cards? And when he's getting people that come against her, when you have the union that's going against her, the union didn't seem to mind her before Finizio came into the picture.
The union did what?
The union didn't seem to mind her being chief before the mayor came into position.
Yeah. Well, I think there might have been some problem brewing, but it definitely wasn't. I mean, it exploded when he came in.
You know, people out there got to look at where this all started and who's continuing this.
Yeah.
And trust me, in my eyes, it's not the chief that's doing it.
Yeah.
And I'll let you go on that one, Bill.
Okay. Hey, thank you for the call, Dennis. Hello, caller, you're New London Republicans.
Yeah, hi, Bill. I just want to expound on something that Dennis said, that he makes a very good point. You know, he could not have fired her for cause. Just because the police department may have been having whatever problems it was having, and that grounds would not have held up in a court where this would have ended up. There would be no court that would uphold her firing just on the fact that the police department was being badly run. You know, they would be looking for things such as malfeasance or stealing of funds or something illegal of that nature. That would be a fireable offense. But for cause is a very broad term, but when it's being ruled on by a court, it's very narrowly interpreted. And just because there's a bad manager who may be doing whose policies and practices may not have sufficed, as long as they stay within the legal rights of her being able to make those decisions, that is not a fireable cause, and it would not have been upheld in any court. So the mayor couldn't fire her on cause back then. That's one thing I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to say is to expound on what Dennis was saying. As far as the money goes, there's another thing that's probably coming down the pike that people haven't factored in yet, and that is, I believe the police chief is probably going to have a workman comp case that's going to be coming up probably in the near future when all this is resolved, however it's resolved. And there's even going to be more money that is going to have to be paid out. Because if you remembered, prior to all this, she had been injured during one of the storms, and I don't think that case was ever adjudicated. I think that case is still, if she's filed one or whatever, and I tell you, this thing is going to run into quite a bundle of money that which the taxpayers are going to have to pick up.
All because it was handled badly.
Well, yes. Well, of course it was handled badly. The other thing is, however it was handled in the beginning, I have to say we all have to take the blame for that. At this point, give credit to the risk manager. He's the one that proposed the $20,000 to hire this lawyer to come inside and finally end this deal. He represents the city on the. I guess he's a representative of PERMA, who's the insurance agency, who would end up paying money. Their agency would have to pay some of the money for whatever lawsuits or stuff that are settled as a result of all this mess. So he's the one that came up with this idea of hiring the outside lawyer, and that's a very important fact. But the problem that I have with everybody, and that includes the city council, the mayor, or whoever, is that this has been allowed to go on for a long time. We all knew that the chief was sitting, at home or wherever, getting a full salary. And why are we talking about this in February? This should have been talked about in August, September, October, November.
You're absolutely
and then,
right.
Of course, when December came, and then she puts in for her tuition, I guess, which is a city-sponsored tuition for college, while she's on suspension, and somebody okays that, people aren't paying attention. And I'll tell you, something else came out of that city council meeting. If you watched, there was an exchange between Passero and the finance director about the money in relation to a grant. And what I took from that is that they thought that the city council, or at least some of the city council, thought that there was money available to back up this grant, and then they come to find out that money wasn't available, and there was an exchange there. And I don't know how many people are paying attention. And I got to tell you, Bill, that people better start paying attention to what's going on in the city, because don't wait until February to turn around and decide that, the chief's been out all this time, because we're paying for this. And
Exactly.
It's time for people to start getting involved.
No, you're exactly right. There should have been, the council should have put a timeline on when the investigation had to be done by the lady, the civil servant lady. Instead, that just dragged on and dragged on. Probably what happened is she probably made a report and it wasn't strong enough to suit the mayor because it wouldn't justify his action. So, he's doing something else. They need to put a timeline on this new lawyer, because if his job is, if he's being told to just go out and investigate the things that the mayor said, he's going to come back probably with pretty close to the same answer as the civil servant lady did. So what I would really rather see happen is for the lawyer to go out there and see if he can't make a deal to get Ackley out of the picture, so we stop the bleeding.
Yeah, well, I don't think this lawyer will be charged with that, and that's not the intent of what's going on. What's going on is they want to find out if there are any viable charges or what it is, so that we can stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
As far as the settlement for Ackley, that's a horse of a different color. That's an apples and orange thing. It's gonna cost a lot of money, probably, I would assume, to buy her out.
It shouldn't buy her. It shouldn't cost too much, because she hasn't lost anything. She's got her pension. She got tons of hours of compensation for, what do they call it? I forget the name of the term for hours worked above 8 hours. but
Yeah,
she got paid off for that.
She's got her comp time, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would say that she's, you know, if the thing went to court, she'd be hard-pressed to say she's been damaged.
Well, the thing is that, well, here's the rub. The point is, this is the point. You want her out. You want this whole thing to just go away.
Right.
If you were her, if you were in those shoes, would you just say, oh, you know what, I'll take whatever money you want to throw me? She's holding the cards right now in your scenario.
You're right.
She knows that you want her out of there. She's got an open deck of cards. She can, a blank check. She can ask for whatever she wants because she knows that she doesn't have to go. And she's still drawing a paycheck.
All I can tell you is that the companies that I worked for, like one of them was Northeast Utilities, in a situation like that, they would bring in enough lawyers or whatever. They would come up with a way to get that person out of there in short order. They wouldn't let it drag on 6 months or a year or however long this is going to go. They would settle quickly, and they'd settle for as little as they could based on maybe any evidence they had to fight against the person and that kind of thing.
Yes, Bill. Do you remember Mr. Fox?
Oh yes, I knew him. You're talking about Bernie Fox.
Do you remember how they settled that deal?
What?
Just a reminder. I think that the Northeast Utilities, if I remember correctly, and I'm using my memory, paid quite a lot of money to get what was basically an ineffectual manager out of that job. Do I pretty much have that clear?
Well, there's so many situations there that I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but
I'm talking about the fact that he got a big payoff to leave the company.
Oh, you're talking about Bernie Fox? Yeah, Bernie Fox probably walked away. I don't remember what he walked away with, but he was. Yeah, I mean, it came down to the fact that he was an incompetent president, CEO, and well, let's see, he was the COO, and yeah, he got canned, and unfortunately for him,
he got a compensation package to go away.
Yeah, he got a package to go, but Ackley shouldn't get the, you know.
Well, I'm just saying, private sector does the same thing pretty much. They do the same thing pretty much public sector does. If they want something to go away and that other person's holding the card, you're going to pay a pretty penny for it.
Yeah, well, that's right.
The fact of the matter is,
the only point I would make is that the longer we wait, probably the worse it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, so letting it drag on. And yes, I think Marty was very good to express his outrage at what's happening.
Marty was absolutely correct to feel outrage. I believe me, I share that with him.
Yes.
Yes, he was absolutely correct.
Yeah.
To feel that outrage that this had gone on so long, and that there were no reports forthcoming and everything. So hopefully this lawyer will do the job of finding out the facts of what's going on. If there is any charges that can be pressed to have her go on, then that lawyer should be able to come up with that. They're familiar with state statutes and how to do it and whether or not there are grounds for it. And then hopefully this will well, we all know that eventually this will go away.
Yeah, it'll have to go away. You're right. Let's just hope let's stop the bleeding somehow.
Yeah, well, that's what we need to do. I think also what we need to take from this, all of us, is that we got to be a little more vigilant so that this never happens again.
You're absolutely right. There ought to be some lessons learned on this case, and some of the lessons would be is let's put some timelines on these investigations and make the mayor report on a regular basis on the progress. If you notice, he doesn't report on anything. Nobody holds him to task for anything, and the council really is in a position to do that.
I hear you. All right, well, listen, that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to help Dennis out there because Dennis does a good job, and
I agree.
I just wanted to add that, and good show tonight, and I'll be listening.
All right, thank you very much, caller.
Yep, take care.
Hello, caller, you're New London Republicans.
Yeah, Bill, it's me again. I'm listening to Ryan, and how about this for a scenario? How about if the mayor goes to the police chief and says, look, let's forget about this. I want you back on the job starting tomorrow. I want you to do what you have to do as chief of police and take over the reins, and I'm here if you need me. And if she refuses to come back to work, now that would seem like it'd be grounds to let her go.
I agree with you there.
Then you don't have to worry about all this crap.
Yeah. And he should be able to hold her. I mean, in that scenario, one of the problems that they had with her is she, she often didn't come into work.
She would have to come to work.
Say again?
If you're on suspension and someone comes to you and says,
"Oh no, I'm talking about before he put her on leave of absence."
That's grounds to get rid of you.
Before she was on a leave of absence, she often wasn't there.
As far as the risk manager goes, I met him. Seems like a really nice guy. But is it really the risk management's job to get involved in investigations as far as like this one?
Yeah, it seems a little bit of a stretch, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I would think a risk management is a job where you're trying to prevent ways from the city being sued because of accidents and things along this line, not investigations. I don't know why he would go to the mayor and say, "Hey, look, I think you need another lawyer for $20,000 to settle this thing." Unless, of course, the mayor's getting the upper hand again. I don't want to believe that about this guy. I like this guy.
Yeah,
but, hey.
Maybe it's tied into the insurance companies, where he deals with the people that are insuring the city, and maybe the insurance company sees a liability with the settlement with her. It might be something.
Bill, I'll hang up and keep listening.
Okay, hey, thank you very much, Cole. Okay, well, let's see, we'll move on from Chief Ackley. I don't think that, unfortunately, I think we'll be talking about this off and on for a while. Let's hope it goes away before the end of the summer. But anyway, before the elections. It really shouldn't be part of the elections, although it probably help us Republicans if it was, because it's been so poorly handled as up till now. Okay, and the next item I wanted to talk about is Fort Trumbull. The Day, Paul Chenier and the Day has been pressing hard to try to bring the Fort Trumbull situation back up again. As you know, it was basically during the last mayoral election, Finenzio was going to get rid of the NLDC, and he was going to solve the Fort Trumbull problem. And of course, all he did really was change the name of the NLDC, and a few people changed out. One of them was a very nice person by the name of Linda Mariani. Another is Joe Grillo, and those guys and others. And those guys went in and undoubtedly are trying to do whatever they can do. And for whatever reason, the mayor's now fighting with them, and he's not even using his economic development committee. What he calls it, it was the New London. Let's see, what the heck's the name of it? Renaissance. Let's see, it's the Renaissance City Development Association. So it's basically the Economic Development Association for Fort Trumbull. And so he's been, I mean, I don't know how the mayor can show anything in Fort Trumbull. He's come up with some really bad ideas. I mean, the first set of bad ideas that I heard that he came up with was he wanted to have a desalination plant there, or a solar system, solar generation type plant there, or a let's see, there was another ridiculous idea. There's three. There was desalination, the sun thing, and then there was something else that was equally inappropriate for the Fort Trumbull area, where it's right there on the waterfront. Could be, something that would be make the city proud rather than be an unsightly mess. And then a couple months later, he came up with another idea where he's going to put like Quonset huts down there for low-income housing, which of course wouldn't generate any tax revenue for the city. So I mean, he's come up with some really bad ideas. So in a way, I'm glad he hasn't done anything, because if he had done anything, it might have been really stupid. So, but on the other hand, how can a guy be forgiven for making this one of his top items for his campaign and having done such a poor job of it, any way you shake it up? And that's kind of where the Day's coming down. The Day has been somewhat sympathetic to Finenzio in some areas. It makes me wonder whether or not they really would support him again for being mayor, in spite of everything that's happened. But right now what we're looking at is, I mean, one by one, you go through all the different items that were on his very superficial plan, which could have been written almost for any city anywhere. and you find that you don't get to check off anything. I mean, the only thing he'll claim he did is he solved the financial situation, but he didn't solve it smart. All he did is raise taxes. He raised taxes and he raised taxes and he raised taxes again. I mean, good grief. And anything that's constructive that was supposed to happen just hasn't happened. A lot of the things that have been done before he came into office aren't happening anymore. So anyway, some of the stuff that today was talking about on the Fort Trumbull situation, they say the two announced candidates for, and this is Finenzio and Passero, the two announced candidates for new London mayor have stark differences of opinion as to how to proceed in trying to get some development underway in the long vacant Fort Trumbull area. And this is Paul Chenier talking. As I noted in the last week's column, Mayor Justin Finenzio, I don't know why they have to stretch out the whole name. Why don't they just say Mayor Finenzio or the mayor, wants to dissolve the development agency long responsible for driving development, the Renaissance City Development Association, and transfer development efforts to the city administration. Boy, putting it under him, that scares me. At the mayor's urging, early in his current term, the group adopted the new name Renaissance City Development Association to distance itself from the former incarnation as the New London Development Corporation, vastly unpopular because of its use of eminent domain to drive homeowners from the Fort Trumbull neighborhood to make way for the development that never came. City Councilor Michael Passero, who is competing with the incumbent mayor for the Democrat nomination, would go in exactly the opposite direction if elected. And he's quoted here, "Now is the time to strengthen our ties with the RCDA, not diminish them. Close cooperation between the city and its Economic Development Corporation is absolutely essential to our growth. Promoting development in partnership with a strong municipal development corporation is a proven strategy for success," wrote Passero. So, he's, in this case, I would side with Passero because the people that they have there now are pretty good. Linda Mariani is a very knowledgeable, successful lawyer. Joe Grill is a very successful person. And then there's the other guys there. I forget who they are now. I don't have my list. Forgive me if I missed you. But anyway, I think they're trying to do the job. What I would say that everybody needs to do, though, associated with Fort Trumbull, is they really got to start. People need to know what action they're taking, and they need to spell out some kind of a project plan that says this is our milestones, this is what we're going to do to make this happen, and these are the things that are going to come together, and this is when it's going to happen, this is who's going to be responsible for it, and this is how much it's going to cost, and go through that process. And then, if there's failures along the way, then hey, we reschedule or we redo it, but at least we know that we tried to do something and we didn't make it, or maybe we'll be successful and get something going. One of the things I'd say about that, why I'm on my high horse about it, is I don't think we should have rental property down there. The last go around with, I think it was called Riverside Corporation or something like that, and I forget the name of the contractor that was going to do it then. But they were going to build not condos, but apartments. And then they wanted to supposedly turn them into condos. All well and good, but man, the city needs people that to own their own homes, because that makes for a much stronger situation, and it also makes for it's much better as far as taxation and revenue goes, because the individual residence is going to bring in more money in taxes than an apartment, the type thing. So I'd like to see that work that way, and because I think that if a person owns a home in the city, they have a lot of skin in the game, and they're here for the duration. And when things happen, it's gonna affect them one way or the other. If you're just renting, you don't feel it until after the landlord digests it and puts it down on you, and then you probably don't even know it was the city that did it. You think it was the landlord. So but at any rate, let's say. One of the things Passero says, it says the RCDA is operating with virtually no support from the city. The 2015 election could provide a clear policy direction. As things stand now, Mayor Finenzio wants to transfer control of most of the land at Fort Trumbull from the development agency to the city, but it appears he does not have the council votes to do so. In my estimation, this is Paul Chenier's estimation, he has yet to make his case for why development prospects would improve with the RCDA out of the picture and his administration in control. In any case, the city needs to go in one direction or the other. Either dissolve the development agency or work with it and support it. It is hard to imagine any development happening in Fort Trumbull given the current situation. As also noted last week in his editorial, in 2010 election, Fort Trumbull was a strong issue for Finenzio as he rallied against eminent domain and called for dissolution of the NLDC. This time, however, the lack of any progress on his watch could prove a liability. He inherited a residential project planned for Fort Trumbull, but the RCDA and the city were unable to work out financial terms with the prospective developer. But anyway, so you got the Fort Trumbull situation there, and I'll be, Lighthouse Inn is a much smaller deal, but that's also right behind there, another situation that has not gone very well. So I don't know. It's going to be, the mayor's going to have to pull some rabbits out of the hat this summer if he's going to not have to face those issues this fall when he runs for election. Okay, another issue is fire department hiring. I'm glad to see the city trying to hire fire department people. I'm pleased to see them try to get New London folks into the fire department. But I'm a little bit, I don't like this idea of basically what I'm worried about is that people will hire people not based on their qualifications, but based on trying to make a quota here or there, based on, like this guy's from this neighborhood, or this guy's not from that neighborhood, or this guy's the wrong color, or whatever. I don't like that. I think the dollar's green. The jobs ought to go to whoever's the best qualified. If we want to look in the city, that's good. But this is what I'd remind you, is in order to be a firefighter, you got to go to the Connecticut Firefighting School. Right outside by Bradley Airport. I did a database for them once upon a time, and that's a really fine organization. They are rock solid. The people that I knew there were just really good folks, and those people that go to that school, they have to know their stuff to pass. And they got to be able to perform to pass. So I'm sure part of the reason why the New London Fire Department has gotten people that already have been to the school is because they know these guys passed and we won't have to pay for the school and then, take the chance that they won't make it and that kind of thing. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to take people from the city and we're going to send them to the fire academy and hope they pass. Well, I just hope that we don't lose track of what we're trying to accomplish. I hope that we sit there and make sure that we know that this guy is academically sound, he's morally sound, he's got a good track record, he hasn't been arrested for this, that, and the other thing. And, for example, Fireman Mayo, he really looks shaky. The fire academy had problems with him. The city tried to react to that. Then there was the pushback, so the mayor took him in, and then he got in trouble again, and he's had sort of a mixed record. We don't need people with mixed records. We need people that are going to be damn good firemen, and let's hope that we get those, and we don't go too far in the direction of, well, let's see, let's try to get this guy because he fits this mold, and this guy because he fits that mold, and then we send them to the fire academy, and they don't pass. In the meantime, we pay their salary until they failed out. So we don't want to see that happen. I hope that they have that in mind. I didn't see anything in the write-up or any discussion of how the city was going to qualify these candidates other than that they're going to open it up and just try to get New London people. I didn't hear anywhere in there where they were going to give them, check their academic record. Did the guy do well in high school or whatever? And is he likely to be able to pass the fire academy before we put money into him? Okay. Let's see. One of the things that was interesting to me is in the past, because Mike Passero is a Democrat, because he was a fireman, because he was a union guy, I kind of thought, well, Mike's probably, can be influenced by the unions, maybe more so than I would like. But what I see happening is some of these unions, and I can't believe it, they're going against Mike Passero and going for Finenzio. Now, Passero has actually done things that the unions ought to be happy about, and yet we see we saw the morons from the American Federation of Teachers go against Passero, go for Finenzio. Here they were going for a guy that caused the strike, who didn't do anything to help resolve the strike for the rank and file, but instead went up against the management, which only encouraged, prolonged. Here these guys are out for Christmas last year, or a year ago, and that AFT, American Federation of Teachers, that at least the ones, what they did around here was really stupid, and they're endorsing Finenzio. And then we got another group here that's this is another, the AFSCME local president has this letter to the editor, or not, it's an op-ed piece where he's supporting Finenzio, and basically he's bad-mouthing Passero, and these are guys are the civil service type, all these civil service type, a lot of civil service people belong to this union. And it's another union that all it's doing is, when the taxpayer sees these guys support somebody, that ought to be a big red flag, because what he's really saying is, this guy is going to give me, the guy I'm endorsing is going to give us money and hire more of our people and make us that much stronger. It's the really bad situation where you have it's the old Democrat play where the unions and the Democrats work together to where the Democrats support the union and the unions come back and support the Democrat. And by support, I mean money and that kind of thing. In this case, you see these two unions support Finenzio. That ought to be a big sign to you that he's not the guy that you want. If they're supporting him, it's because their interest, their own self-interest, they feel are at stake, and that this guy would support them in a better way, meaning more money, more jobs, more situations. And so, what I guess the point that I'm really making is Passero has been kind of close with the unions in the past, but this is an indicator that, hey, obviously he's not in their pockets, and may, of those two guys, I would certainly trust Passero more than I would Finenzio to look out for the taxpayers in New London. And I'm sure that we'll have some other people come along and we'll be able to make some evaluations about them in a similar fashion. But at this point, I would say congratulations to Passero for having the AFT and the AFSCME not support you. That must mean you're doing a good job for the taxpayers in New London. Okay. Let's see. We only have a couple minutes left. One of the things I'd like to do is I'd like to see this city council raise the pay for the mayor, because we need to have more and better candidates to run for mayor, and a lot of that has to do with the salary. Right now it's around $80,000, and if you want to get somebody that's a successful lawyer, a successful doctor, a senior engineer, a guy that runs his own business, that kind of thing, that may be prohibitive for them at that salary. So I think that even though I think $80,000 is a nice salary to be sure, but it's not going to be enough to bring in a lot of people. And number two is it's well below a lot of the people that work for the mayor. For example, the police chief gets $110,000 a year. So it's that kind of thing. There's a lot of stuff about the state that we wanted to talk about tonight, and then we didn't get to it. A lot of Malloy issues. I'll try to get to them next week. Things like Connecticut hiring. This isn't necessarily Malloy. Connecticut hiring is the worst in the nation, And then you got Malloy with the sales tax sneaky issue. And then he's got this pay secrecy thing where we're fading off. So we'll get to it next week. Thank you very much, and we'll see you then.